Hi everybody, and welcome to Observing with Webb, where a high school astronomy teacher tells you what you're looking at, why it's so cool, and what you should check out next at night. Don't forget to check out my Podbean page, mrwebb.podbean.com, my YouTube channel and Twitter feed, both at mrwebbpv, or you can get this as a podcast on Stitcher and iTunes. And I'd like to apologize for being so late this month. However, I've been extremely busy planning the 50th anniversary and grand reopening of the Pequea Valley Planetarium, which was partially fueled by you, people who listened and watched and voted for the planetarium. So I just want to give you guys a little information. May 12th is going to be happening from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. 2 p.m. there's a ribbon cutting of some sort and open house. And after the open house, we will have some free shows and lots of STEM activities. There should be plenty to do, even if you're not inside actually in the planetarium. Great STEM activities. We should have some food, all kinds of stuff. I would suggest going to the Facebook page for the Pequea Valley Planetarium and checking out the event and signing up. That way you can get all the announcements of, who's coming. It's free, all of it, but I will be selling tickets, not for money, but just reserving tickets for the shows because, it can only fit so many people in. That's enough of the local goings on. Let's talk about March and looking at the night sky. It's mostly an uneventful month, but you can take advantage of the week-long lineup of Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter in the mornings in the east, and the moon kind of stopping by there from the 7th to the 13th, which should make for some really good pictures. And in fact, right now, let's see, it's March 4th today. Right now, I just saw Venus and Mercury a lot better than I expected to see them while I was walking out of the grocery store. And it was just impressive that we could actually see that. And I'll show you what that looks like. But get out there, take a look. We might actually get some good nights if it's not snowing. So anyway, let's move on to the planets. Let's talk planets. So let's start off with the stuff that's going on around sunset. So if you look around sunset, and I actually have this set to tonight, right around sunset, when I actually did see Mercury and Venus. If you look, this is actually pretty close to what I saw, actually. Let's bring it down just a little bit lower. You could actually very clearly see Venus and Mercury off toward the west. It was amazing how much you could see even though they're so low in the sky and dusk is such a bright time, but you could really see Venus and Mercury there. Now, are you going to be able to see that for the rest of the month? Well, let's take a look and see what happens around the same time for this month. So let's move forward, march forward a little bit. Mercury is actually going to get a bit higher, but I think it's also going to get dimmer at that point. But you should be able to see it off in the west for most of the month. And in fact, the best time to find Mercury this month is the third week, because that's when Mercury is the highest in the sky, and that's about 15 degrees above the horizon and right in the vicinity of Venus. Venus is going to be much brighter. In fact, if we look at the magnitude, negative 3.91 for Venus, that's actually very bright, and negative 0.16 for Mercury. That's also pretty bright as well. But you can actually check those out in the west around sunset. But you have to do it fairly quickly because, let me fast forward time throughout the night. They set around, let's say, 7 o'clock. So you don't have much time to work with them. But they are there. Let me go back to 6:30. And let's take a look at Venus. Venus changes from about 10 degrees to about 15 degrees above the sun this month. And you just have to look west after sunset and find the brightest light in that direction. Now I stopped halfway through the month. Let's keep looking and see what happens. Oh, it looks like Mercury actually comes down for the last week, and Venus sort of passes right by. And Mercury is pretty much gone by the end of the month. Really hard to find that then. And Venus is actually going to get really close to Uranus on that night, night of the 28th. But man, you would have to be really talented and have a real nice telescope to check those out. But, somebody probably does. So that would be the planets that you can see right around sunset. Okay, let me go back to today. So sunrise tomorrow morning. Okay, what are we going to see off in the east? Well, it's not even in the east, it's more in the southeast. And let me back up a little bit to when it's pretty dark, 5:30 in the morning. And what do we see? We see a nice lineup of planets. We've got Saturn, we've got Mars, and we've got Jupiter. And they're looking really great. So if you're getting up in the morning, let's say 5:30, you should be able to find Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter all in that diagonal line. Now, Jupiter is going to be pretty bright and high in the sky. That one's going to be pretty easy to find at negative 2.19. Saturn's at 0.55, so Saturn's dimmer, but it's still much brighter than anything around it. And Mars is, well, that's kind of harder to see. It's a little dimmer, but it's got a nice ruddy red color to it. So you should be able to pick that out. It doesn't twinkle like the other stars because it is a planet and less of a point source. So anyway, that's what it looks like at 5:30. Let's see what it looks like starting when Jupiter starts rising. So I'm rewinding the clock in the morning. And so Jupiter is going to rise up about midnight, which means you can see Jupiter, well, basically anytime after midnight. And at the end of the month, that's actually going to rise at 10 p.m. So it gets easier and easier to find. And that's going to rise up. Eventually, it'll reach about 30 degrees high in the south. And then Mars pops up next, rising around 2:30 in the morning. You just look south around sunrise. And then a little bit, let me back up, around 3:30 is when Saturn pops up, at least in the beginning of the month. And so after 3:30 is when you can really see all of these. Now, a good time to check them out would likely be like 5:30 because, well, that's when normal people actually wake up or can get out of the house. Throughout the month, you've got Mars actually getting closer and closer to Saturn, and everything pretty much moving over to the one side. And so by the 31st of March, Saturn and Mars are actually pretty close together. And if you're thinking ahead, they actually get closest, it looks like on April 2nd or 3rd. 2nd or 3rd is when they actually get really close together, a good picture opportunity. But if we back up, that's what you're looking at for March. Okay, they start off spread out, and then Mars gets very close to Saturn. Now, the other cool part about this, which I'll get into next, is that the moon actually passes through. So let me move on to some of the other stuff that's happening this month. And a bunch of other stuff. So the full moon was on the 2nd of the month, and March is going to be a month with 2 full moons. So, yay, March. The moon actually gets thinner and thinner, and the last quarter moon is going to be on the 9th. Now, I'm not quite going to get to the 9th yet because I want to focus on this close encounter week going on right here. This is very interesting. So, I'm going to start at 5 in the morning. You can see this until the sun rises pretty much. But what you notice is that on the 6th, the moon is up here. Then there's Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn, and they make this really beautiful line in the morning sky. And this is going to last kind of all week, but with the moon passing through. So as long as you get up after 3 a.m., but before sunrise, you'll be able to see all 3 of the planets. Now, Jupiter will be consistently up here. The planets stay put. They stay still, but the moon goes through. But Jupiter's way up here. Mars is down here about 30 degrees away. That's 3 fist widths, held at arm's length. 1, 2, 3. And then Saturn will be about 15 degrees down and to the left. Now, what's going to happen is on the 7th, the moon will actually be much closer to Jupiter, a little bit above it. Okay, and then on the next night, it will have moved almost directly in between Jupiter and Mars. On the 9th, it'll be closer to Mars. And on the 10th, it's actually going to be in between Mars and Saturn, but it's going to be a little bit above. And here's when it starts becoming more of a beautiful crescent moon up here. You won't be able to see these, but ignore that. Okay? And then on the next night, or morning, do I keep saying night? I mean morning. On the 11th, the moon and Saturn will be very close to each other, and they'll have this really good crescent moon look. It's just going to be fantastic. And then on the 12th, they're not really close to each other, but they still make this nice, beautiful line all together. So that, if you can get a wide field shot and get all the planets, all those planets, and a nice crescent moon, you're in good shape. So that's it for that part. Now on the 11th, we're past it. On the 11th, we have daylight savings time beginning at 2 a.m. And you've noticed that the moon has been getting thinner and thinner. And then eventually on the 17th is when we have the new moon, which means we have to switch over, if we want to look at the moon, to the evening. So let's go to sunset and let's face west. Okay. Now, the new moon is on the 17th. And if you're really good, watch this. On the 18th, you might be able to catch Venus, Mercury, and the moon all together. Now, I was going to say you won't be able to see it, but based on what I saw tonight, maybe you will see Venus, Mercury pretty close together with the moon off to the left. But you'll need a very clear view of the horizon in order to do that. But they do set around 7:05, so you have a very limited amount of time. So then let's zoom out a little bit, and if we go to March 20th, we have a nice thin crescent moon, but we also have the astronomical first day of spring. Even though meteorologically it starts in the beginning of March, I'll have a link for that in the description. And also, if you take a look, let's see if I can back away here a little bit, you'll watch that the moon, as the days go by, gets bigger, thicker, and higher in the sky until the 24th, which is when we have the first quarter moon. And then nothing else really happens until, well, let's see if we keep looking at, let's go 7 o'clock every night. You see the moon is going to be further to the east, a little bit thicker, a little bigger. And then on the 31st is when we have a full moon. Okay? And that's it really for the events, not too much. Just get out there in the mornings.
Are there patterns in our skies? Are patterns only in our eyes?
All right, so let's take a minute and talk about some of the constellations that you can see. Just a few. I want to focus again on Orion here, the vertical bow tie in the sky. It's very high up there, even at 8 o'clock. Very neat. And now that it's higher, if you follow the belt to the left, you can easily see Canis Major over here. Very bright constellation with the brightest star in the sky, Sirius. But if you follow his belt to the right, you'll see Taurus the Bull up here, that V constellation. Very, very pretty, very neat to find. And you'll also start seeing some of the spring constellations. If you find Gemini up here, that's a winter, but if you go to the left, there's Cancer. That's kind of hard to find, just because it's got pretty dim stars in general. But then you'll be able to find Leo over here toward the east with the beautiful right triangle and the sickle, or backwards question mark, up there as well. And since I'm approaching the 10-minute mark, I'd say, because I explained a lot before on the planetary lineup thingy, I think I'm going to stop there and just say, hey, see if you can come out for the planetarium show. I'm going to be working really hard in getting all that together. Maybe I should record April and May observing with Webb's early in advance so I don't mess that up. But anyway, please come out, and please get out in the mornings that second week of March and check that out. I think it's going to be really nice, as long as you're not, in a blizzard or something. So anyway, that's it for me. I'd like to wish you all very clear, dark skies for the month of March.